In Chapter 7, we're going to work on the lymphatic system and trying to understand how the immune system functions. The key points to ponder are looking at the parts of the lymphatic system and its functions, the first and second lines of defense in non-specific immunity, cell-mediated and antibody-mediated immunity in third line of defense. Then we're going to start looking at the different types of B cells in these processes. And then we'll talk about active and passive immunity, which will help us understand how we require immunity. And then lastly, we'll look at overreactions of the immune system. So things like allergic reactions, tissue rejection, and immune system disorders. So in section 7.1, we're really getting an overview of the lymphatic system. We have lymphatic capillaries that absorb excess tissue fluid and return it back into the bloodstream. These lymphatic capillaries actually have lacteals, and they're in the small intestine that absorb fats associated with proteins. So fluids like fats can't cross the capillary barrier, and so lacteals have small openings that allow that fluid to move into them and then be returned back into the circulatory system. We'll talk about that in the digestive system. The lymphatic system works in the production and maintenance and distribution of lymphocytes in the body as well. This is things like the white blood cells that we talked about when we were dealing with the bloodstream. And it also helps in the defense against pathogens. So here you can see the components of the lymphatic system. You'll notice that it goes all the way up through and around the entire body. It almost looks like the circulatory system. You can see the right lymphatic duct here, which is emptying lymph into the right subclavian vein. Notice how close to the heart that is. We have tonsils, which have patches of lymphatic tissue that help prevent entrance of pathogens by way of the nose and the mouth. The red bone marrow, which is the origin of all blood cells, including the white blood cells. The thymus, where we allow for lymphocytes to mature. We have the spleen, which cleanses the blood of cellular debris and bacteria. Also has some resident lymphocytes that help respond to antigens. And here you can see what we were talking about on the last slide, where you can see fluid that's built up in the tissues is reabsorbed into the lymphatic system, then moves all the way back and is dumped back into the vascular system or the circulatory system right here up by the heart. You will also notice the lymph nodes that are found around the hips and the armpits and the neck and other places as well. But if you have an active infection, virus, you'll notice the swelling of these lymph nodes as a reaction to this. Lymphatic vessels specifically are one-way streams. They have a valve that carries fluid called lymph. We have capillaries, vessels, and ducts, and they function to return tissue fluid, which includes water, solutes, and cell products, back into the bloodstream. Larger vessels are similar in structure to veins, and they even have valves-like veins that prevent the backflow of this fluid. There is no major pump that moves the fluid around, so that fluid is moved through movement of the body, so muscle contractions. This is why if you have an injured ankle, it'll have swelling as a reaction to the injury, but then if you're on crutches and you keep your foot propped up, that lack of movement allows even more fluid to build up, which is why you can get the swelling to be so great. Now, if we start classifying our lymphatic organs, we have our primary organs, which are the red bone marrow and the thymus. This is where you're seeing the production and then maturation of the white blood cells. In the secondary lymphatic organs, we're looking at the lymph nodes and the spleen, and these are working in conjunction with the rest of the lymphatic system. Let's talk a little bit more about this. So, red bone marrow is the site of the blood cell production. More bones in children have red marrow, and it decreases as we age. Some white blood cells even mature here. But the thymus is a bilobed gland, and it's found in the thoracic cavity, and it's superior to your heart. It starts out much larger in children, and it shrinks as we age. In fact, it gets quite tiny by the time we become elderly. Immature T lymphocytes move from the marrow to the thymus, where they mature, and about 95% of them stay there. When we deal with the secondary lymphatic organs, we're looking at the lymph nodes. These are small oval-shaped structures found along the lymphatic vessels. They're just chock full of B cells, T cells, and macrophages. So if you remember back to talking about the white blood cells, these are part of your defense system. They're very common in the neck, the armpit, and the groin regions. So if you have an active infection, these become much, much larger. And this is why you can become tender in those areas. In the spleen, it's found in the upper left region of the abdominal cavity. It's filled with white pulp containing lymphocytes and red pulp, which is involved with filtering the blood. So in 7.1, we're just trying to get an understanding of what the lymphatic system is. In the next sections, we'll dive more deeply into the immune system and how we keep pathogens out of the body.